A few minutes on the Air Force Survival Jet Pilot Knife. My first encounter with these things was at the gun shows in the mid-late 80s. This bright commercial Camillus with this commercial Camillus trademark was $25 at the shows, and its Parkerized counterpart was $20. The first of the Camillus Air Force pilot knives were made in World War II. The 1943 Camillus spec sheet shows this as an Army Air Force knife. The one on the top is wood. The one underneath is bone. They both have the 4-line Camillus trademark. Next, chronologically, is the Army Air Corps knife. Both of these also made by Camillus. This one with the straight line trademark, and this one with the curved. Next is the post-World War II jet or pilot survival knife. And the top one is a Camillus, the middle is an Imperial, and the bottom is a Schrade. Now in 1957, the Navy worked with Marbles and developed this 6-inch Air Force survival knife. These are made by Marbles, Gladstone, Michigan, USA. There are 3 types of these. The most common, which is not a common knife, is a blued blade. There's also a bright blade, and there's a blued blade that's sterile, no marking. Now the military Marbles knives had a plain grip, leather grip, with no spacers in them. The commercial Marbles knives have colored plastic spacers in them. You'll see the commercial ones come up for big money as being military, but they're not. Colored spacers in the grip is commercial. Even though the knife was developed by Marbles, it looks to like Camillus got the contract. And all of the knives, with the exception of the 6-inch Marbles, from 1957 through 1968 were produced by Camillus. This is the 6-inch Camillus Air Force survival knife. The only marking on this knife is the Camillus New York on the ricasso of the blade. The early ones are a screwed pommel, so the tang is threaded and the pommel screws onto it. The later ones, the tang is peened over onto the pommel. These are the early 6-inch scabbard. This is the late 6-inch scabbard, which really is the same design as the 5-inch with the exception of that it's a 6. So that 6-inch was produced through 1961. 1962 through 1966 was a 5-inch with still the same marking, Camillus New York, on the ricasso of the blade, nothing else. So here's one in a bag, unopened, that I cannot date. There's no marking on the bag. Here's another one that's opened with no marking, no way to date this. Here's another one that is marked. Same knife, just the Camillus marking on the ricasso, Camillus New York, and that's dated February 1966. So that gets you through 1966. In January of 1967, the pommel marking starts coming in, 167. This pile of knives, these are all transitional. They're dual marked. They have the ricasso marking and the pommel marking, 167. Now, when those blades ran out, the marked blades, here comes the plain blade with the pommel marking, 167. And this one has a gray paint on the top of the pommel, which designates navy. Here's a 167 in an unopened bag, a 367 unopened bag. This is the back side of the sheath in an unopened March 1967 to show you how the marking is on the back of the sheath. And this is a 567 unopened bag. There are 5 makers of the Air Force survival knife. Cole lists 5 makers in his books. The Marbles, the Utica, and the Utica is only marked on the pommel with no date. The Milpar, which is only marked on the ricasso with no date. The Milpar aluminum hilt, and the Ontario. And this Ontario is dated 169. That's the earliest Ontario I know of. Now these are private purchase knives. They're Japanese. This one here is marked top. Some of them have a number on them. This says something company. This one just says Japan on it. And what these usually have in common is that they have a threaded tang and it's screwed up through the pommel, so you can just unscrew that. But this is a cheap knife. This is not a screwed pommel, early Camillus. This is a $50 cheap knife. There's a couple of oddball makers here. This is an uncommon MMB. And this is the unicorn of all these things. An NMC, which Sean Brown steered me to. Thank you, Sean. Now, there's different ways to collect these. You'd think it would be finite, but it isn't. I like these period-added guards. You can get into the private purchase knives. There's a Hackman on the left. There's Garcia Hackman clone in the middle. And the one on the end, if you really want to go in the deep end with these, is a Vietnam era Randall number 15. This is a survival vest. The vest, the knife on the left-hand side is incorporated in the vest. That's a 167 knife, and that vest is dated 1970. The knife in the middle is in a period stitched. That's a 6-inch and a period stitched fixture to allow it to incorporate to be worn somehow, and the one on the piece on the right is a later fixture. I hope I've answered some questions or helped you with this a little bit. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm a collector. Have fun, collect what you like, and don't do anything stupid.